Morning, everyone. Welcome back to this Saturday's Walk and Talk. This Saturday's Walk and Talk is going to be quite special because I got a guest with me here. Say hi, John.
Hello, everyone.
So John is somebody I've known for, I think about 20 years. 20 years?
That sounds about right.
20 years, yeah. John's been in education for a long time. He's been on the board of directors for BCSchool Sports. He's been a big-time referee at the Quad A Girls Championships. He's a math teacher. He's been a vice principal. He's gone back into the classroom. So he's done it. He's seen it. And he understands kids. And that's the reason why I brought John out here for our walk and talk today. The reason why it's important that I bring John out to talk today is because one of the things that we see in education is kids having a fixed mindset. And no offense, John, math is probably the subject where we have the most fixed mindset. And I'm sure there's a lot of adults going out there, oh my God, they're going to talk about math. I can't do math. I hate math. Math is hard for me. There's not a lot of people who say I can't do English, I can't do social studies. Some say I can't do science. But math is one of those places where kids will struggle. They'll go in with a wall and whatnot. And so what we have to do as educators is we have to try to get kids to get past that roadblock and feel like they can do math. And like I said, I can't teach math. And I shouldn't say that because that's a fixed mindset. And I guess the question is, I should be asking, or the statement I should be saying is, I can't do math yet, or I can't teach math yet. The other piece that I'm going to ask John to talk about, besides math, because he's going to talk about math for a long time probably, and I'm more interested in sports. The other piece I want John to talk about is sports, because John has been around college level athletes. He's been around high school level athletes. He's been around elementary school athletes. Currently, he's running the Merit Misfits volleyball program, developing youth, and going for 2 or 3 years, John?
Entering our third year.
Yeah. So there's a correlation between having a fixed mindset in math and kids who play sports struggling with, and I'm going to use basketball or swimming. In swimming, for example, a kid's they're doing their 50 free, it's at 32 seconds and they want to get to 31 seconds and they just can't get there. And so they get this belief that they can never do it. And they become stuck in this fixed mindset. And so I'm going to have John talk about math. I'm going to have him talk about athletics. And hopefully he can give you parents and teachers some tips on what to do with your kids at home when they're in that fixed mindset, or in their classrooms when they have that fixed mindset. Okay, John.
Yeah, talk to me.
You can take this, buddy.
Okay.
So, John, my question is to you, what do you do when you encounter kids with a fixed mindset in math or a fixed mindset in athletics? But maybe start with math, John.
Sure. Yeah, so Leroy was not lying. Math is definitely the most feared subject by kids. And it most likely started at a very young age. And unfortunately, that fear and anxiety has carried over to high school, where I start teaching math. And these are some of the things I kind of focus on to help kids somewhat overcome that obstacle. So first of all, the classic excuse or reason, I should say, why kids struggle with math is, my parents weren't good at math, therefore I'm not good at math.
Oh, that's the truth.
And I'll tell you right now, there is no gene in our body that defines our math ability. I assure you that. That's the first thing.
I feel like there is, John.
Well, let me tell you, that is fake news.
That's fake.
Secondly, in my classroom, for example, we are focused on building community, and we're focused on sharing knowledge. And so kids don't feel like they're on their own in a math classroom. I tell my kids every year, this would be a community classroom where we help each other pass this class. So no kids left alone. No kid feels like it's a competitive battleground out there. It is, everyone's on the same playing field and we're all in it together. And that helps me build that safe classroom that I find kids need to even enter a math classroom and even begin to consider to try a problem without the worry of what people think of them.
So quick question for you, John. Do you run into kids who actually just don't show up to class because they're that afraid of math? Like you have to kind of look out in the hallway.
100%. Like I always do the last second look outside my classroom, and you'll see the odd kid or the odd two kids who are so afraid of math that they are going the opposite direction, or they are hoping that they can change that class and make it a support block and try math again the next semester maybe. So 100% there are kids out there. So for me, like that first week, it's not about the math. It's about, like I said again, it's about building that community, that sense of community and well-being in the classroom.
Right. So here's another question then for you. So one of the things that I really push with my emotional schools framework and emotional intelligence, and in a lot of my videos, I've been talking about the amygdala, that fight, flight, and freeze response, and developing that prefrontal cortex, and developing that grit and resilience. And so I always have this fear, that, and when I was a high school principal too, I always had this fear that we did put a lot of onus on getting kids graduated and making sure we had their pathway set. But sometimes we took away from developing that grit and perseverance. Which then brings me back to sports and how, even a subject like math is interconnected with that. And that's why I asked that question. So, I think then, so in your class, I know you want to talk about vertical learning a little bit. Does vertical learning then, because as far as I remember, that's kids in groups working on windows and stuff like that. How does that help with a fixed mindset going to a growth mindset and developing perseverance and grit and all that?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So first of all, like I connect athletics and teaching on the level of process. So my math classroom, for example, is 100% focused on process. In fact, a student's mark is essentially a byproduct of their learning and not so much the objective of the learning. So so you bring up vertical learning, which I call, that's actually my term, vertical learning. It's actually called vertical non-permanent surfaces, but vertical learning is a way easier phrase to say. Yeah.
That makes me hate math.
Yeah. And my English skill sometimes struggles with that type of words. So, vertical learning. So and I got this from Peter Ligadol, who's been a godsend for math for me and for other educators in the province. Mixed in with a podcast I listen to called Math Therapy from Vanessa Vicaria, and they both have really inspired me to create a classroom that promotes thinking and promotes a growth mindset. And this is how I find it's helping. So in vertical learning, as you said, kids are basically standing up, working on whiteboards or windows. Data shows that students are much more engaged and actively learning when they're standing up, not sitting down.
And that's interesting because that ties into a lot of the stuff that I talk about around free play and structured play.
Right.
Your brain's working more.
You're more active, right?
Yeah.
And you're more willing to learn.
So if you're a parent listening to this, talking about those foundation skills, like what can they do that aligns with vertical learning and building those foundation skills to help you out as a math teacher?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is building confidence at home. So, first off, sitting with your child and attempting the math tasks that are given the kids to try at home. There's a whole slew of online options where you can type in, math tasks or developing number sense. And the websites are great at showcasing these problems in that fashion. So honestly, the first step is just being with your kid and trying these math tasks together. I find that I've had success with my own kids. And my own kids sometimes don't love math either. Let's be honest here. Like, just because I quite like numbers and I'm kind of geeky that way, that doesn't mean my kids are as well, right? And then, once we start building that vertical learning process in my class, kids start to take more risks, knowing that they can erase the answer right away.
So just jump in really quickly, John.
Of course.
So in regards to the vertical learning, so what does it physically look like when if a parent were to walk into your class, what would they see? Okay,
so picture my current Math 10 class, which has 31 kids in it. And I put them in groups of 3. Now, you can put the groups randomly, or you can make up your own groups, or you can let the kids choose their groups. I often, when I first integrate vertical learning in my classroom, I let them pick their own groups, and I can modify it kind of indirectly, and I'll explain that in a second. But if a parent walked in, they would see groups of 3, maybe 4, at a part in my classroom, standing up either on a whiteboard or at a window. So I have 5 big windows in my room. I have my office window as well, and I've got 4 whiteboards that we can break up so it can easily house 31 kids. And so they'll see 31 kids standing up. They will see 31 kids sharing knowledge with each other among the group first. You might see the odd kid leaving their group to go sneak into another group and get some help and then come back and share that information with their group. But it's organized chaos. It's loud for sure, but it's organized.
So here's my question then on that note. So the whole point of this walk and talk this morning was talking about getting kids to go from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset in math. And it sounds like what you're describing, John, is kids forget they have a fixed mindset because of the chaos, because of it being so free and they're moving and there's no spotlight on them. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And that's what the kids forget. Like, they don't even realize they're doing math anymore. They don't realize that they're doing work because everyone's in it together. They can see everyone's in it together. And they love the fact that they can share knowledge. Kids love sharing knowledge with each other. Kids love it. And kids love the structure. They'll never tell you they love structure. Trust me, they won't. But you put in something like this that's nice and structured, they just fly with such positive impact. It's actually really fun to watch. I used to pride myself on being like that iron fist, my classroom is the quietest in the school kind of teacher. And then I finally woke up one day and thought, this is not how it should be. This is not what teaching is all about. You might think I'm embellishing, but it's actually pretty cool how kids will just jump in when they start to realize that everyone is trying it and that mistakes are celebrated, and that you can easily erase any risk you take on a question because it's on a non-permanent board, right? A non-permanent platform. And so once kids realize this classroom is safe, this classroom, promotes making mistakes, that we all share mistakes together, kids just seem to, they ask, when are we going to do vertical learning again? When are we going to do it again? Because obviously we don't do it all the time.
So can I jump in again?
Of course you can.
You're hitting a lot of key points around emotional intelligence, that whole social awareness piece and personal awareness, which is a core competency in BC here. So when you preach and promote failure as an option, which is fantastic, what happens when in your class, if a kid does start getting stuck or frustrated and you can see them really struggling, what do the other kids step up, or does it have to be you, or does it turn into a community that takes care of each other? If that makes sense.
So I'll go back to vertical learning. When a group or an individual is stuck on a problem, I've been quite impressed on how often kids will. So in vertical learning, if you have the marker in your hand, the other 2 speak. So the person with the marker can't speak; they only write. And if one of the learners without the marker are stuck, I will often, if they don't, I'll grab the marker from their hand, give it to they're struggling, so they can just write things down, so the 2 learners who are watching can promote and provide that information. So, and that's why we have to promote this community thing and stop with the individualistic marks, and stop with the, well, you got the A, you got the B, you got the C. Sorry, tangent. My crawl space flooded last summer. Okay, a nice big puddle on the bottom of my crawl space. I wasn't impressed. I am not a plumber. I can't fix that. So I called for help. Someone came over and charged me $4,000, and it got fixed. Why do we have to have these testing situations and these circumstances where we can't help each other? I don't understand. My entire life, I've asked people for help. I've come to you how many times, Leroy, for help on all kinds of situations. We're here to help each other. So why not promote that in your classroom? So for example, on my tests, when I give out tests, my kids are allowed to cheat on their tests. What does that mean? They can ask the person beside them for help on a question.
John, I'm going to just jump in because just so you know, I haven't paid John to talk about this stuff, but one of the things that, people ask me about the Emotional Schools Framework when I do these workshops is people oftentimes think it's a binder or a program you pull off a shelf that that has to be added on to what you do. And the Emotional Schools Framework, without me prompting John, is exactly what John's talking about. It's about embedding emotional intelligence practices into your program. And you look, John's a math teacher. He's talking about a math 10 class, and he's talking about social intelligence and emotional intelligence, and he's talking about community, and he's talking about critical thinking and creative thinking and collaboration and communication, which are all things that develop emotional intelligence. And he's also talking about empathy and kindness. And he had no idea that he's already doing the Emotional Schools Framework. which is pretty awesome. So John, I'm going to steer you a little bit away
Sure.
from math here.
By all means.
So in your experience, because I know, you were a board member with BCSchool Sports. You've been a West Zone rep, I think West Zone, right? Athletic rep.
So West Zone rep. I was the Okanagan Zone president.
Right. Okay. So,
Yeah.
and then of course you've reffed college games, you've reffed high level championship games. So you've been around coaches, athletes, from young to small. You've been around people who've been in athletics for 20, 30, 40 years, and you've been around people who've been in athletics in the last year or two. How do you connect what's going on in your classroom to what you're seeing in the athletic world? So when you're when you were sitting with BCSchool Sports, like what kind of conversations happened around athletics? Like, was it more structural? Was it more organizational? Or did you guys get into vertical learning type philosophy where you worked together as an athletic group? Do you know what I'm trying to say? I guess I'm trying to say, what's the tie-in between developing kids athletically and what you're doing in your classroom with vertical learning, which promotes emotional intelligence? Like, what happens at that level? And what did you see in your time there to try to make what happens in your math classroom happen in athletics provincially?
Well, what I can say is there were definitely some comparisons between being on the board and our processes at those meetings and what I do in my classroom. I would say for the most part, it was the inclusion piece. So a lot of our meetings were, how do we promote more inclusion with high school kids in sports? How do we promote, the importance of having athletics in kids' lives for balance? And I say balance because I think it's a key thing in my math class. And I'll go back to your question in a second, but in my math class, there's a nice balance of vertical learning, a nice balance of, working at your desk, and a nice balance of, today, we're going to focus on nothing that's about math, but how we can learn about how to think better towards our subject of math. And we do kind of some fun tasks with that. So what I liked about being on the board was we often had group sessions where we could brainstorm ideas, we could share ideas, so that sharing of knowledge. We could share those ideas with the broader group.
Making me look tiny again.
God, here we go.
Hey, God, I'm actually taller than this.
He is lying to you. Sorry, guys. He's super lying. And so for me, the board gave me more perspective on what was important for kids. And that math is not the be all end all, and that it's just one of those things that's a part of a child's life at that time. And so for me, it was the inclusion piece. It was the sharing knowledge at these meetings, and then seeing those pieces of knowledge shared put into action and seeing the end result. But this is the same thing. And you mentioned that I used to referee, and I still referee basketball and volleyball when I can, but preparation for refereeing, same idea. You're with a crew that you're relying on. You have your pregame, conversations. You're preparing. You're sharing knowledge with each other again. You're ensuring that you're all on the same page. And if someone's stuck, there's someone there to help you. There's that help piece again I mentioned earlier. So in the end, it's the connection piece, which I think we still struggle to do with some kids. We've got to build connection first. And once your kids can trust you, once your athletes you're coaching can trust you, once the athletes you're reffing can trust you, then the next level of the process can begin to build and kind of pan out. And it's kind of fun to watch from the background.
John said a lot, but he said a lot of pretty amazing things, to be honest. And, at the core of everything that John said lies this structure and organizational, instructional philosophy that involves community and relationships and building connections with families and kids and bringing kids together so that they treat each other with respect and kindness because it helps them grow. And I think ultimately, one of the things that we're trying to do and I'm trying to do with these walk-in talks is I'm trying to bring parents into that mix. And you can see parents with a guy like John here who's been involved in a million things. Are you a chef too? What haven't you done?
Well, I'm on the Pickleball board director as well now.
Oh, he's a
love me some pickleball people.
Pickleball, okay.
They're never too young.
Never too young. Yeah, he's never beat me in a game of ping pong though. We played like 3 or 4 games one time and I killed him. He's still upset about
How
that.
much more fake news is going to happen?
More fake news. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make here is I want everybody to see that you could be teaching math 10, math 11, or you can be on the volleyball court, basketball court, swimming pool, pickleball court, and it all comes down to emotional intelligence and developing relationships and making sure that your structure and organization promotes that. You're going to have good people who are going to do right by your kids. Okay. So on that note, peace out.
Peace out.